the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Let's talk about how to make an effective apology. And, let me just say this. I think you probably ought to be making apologies, fairly often. Now, how can I say that? Because I don't know you personally. But what I do know is, humanly speaking, we all have flaws and defects. And those flaws and defects, are like little dents in our relationship, right? Little chips of paint that we knock off from time to time. And not because we want to hurt our spouse, but just because we do, even though we don't want to. Kind of like St. Paul, who says, I find I do the evil I don't want to do. Well, that's marriage too, right? And we get it wrong, and we're a little cranky sometimes, or a little short, or a little irritable, or a little selfish, or a little self-focused, or we spend too much time with a screen in front of our face, and we ignore our spouse, right? Or we don't greet them with a smile at the end of the day, or whatever. We don't give them a good enough kiss at bedtime, whatever it is, right? So apology should be kind of a regular part of the dialogue between a husband and a wife, right? So there's a few steps in the process. Number one, acknowledge the offense. Acknowledging the offense is the essential element, right? It's the foundational element of a good apology. And many apologies don't do this adequately. Apologies are more likely to be well received if you show that you recognize that you were responsible, that you recognize you actually harmed your spouse, and you can actually talk about the nature of the offense. For example, saying, I made a mistake is a much better thing than to say, hey, mistakes were made. Well, right? Which fails to allocate the responsibility back to yourself. Similarly, acknowledging that harm occurred is better than making vague statements that minimize, the legitimacy of your spouse's grievances, right? So saying something like, I'm sorry you feel hurt is not an apology. It's saying, well, the problem is yours, and I'm sorry you got a problem. That's not an apology, right? Because you fail to acknowledge the specific offense, right? Or something like, I'm sorry for whatever I said yesterday. Now, that's passing the buck, too. That's not owning your piece of it, right? It's too vague, right? So, whatever I said, which doesn't suggest I intend to, do better going forward, right? It's much better to say something like, I'm sorry for making that insensitive joke. I'm sorry for my tone of voice. I'm sorry for the language I used. I'm sorry that I called you a name. I'm sorry that I embarrassed you, right? Effective apologies always begin with the word I, okay? And followed by am sorry, okay? All right, so a little asterisk here, a little caveat. Rarely, though, do you need to provide an explanation for why you did what you did, okay? In some cases, it might be helpful to explain the offense, but usually you're not going to need to do that, nor should you, because these explanations come off as defensive or excuse-making. It's better to just state what you're sorry for and leave it at that and not try to understand or justify it or explain it. Now, if your spouse says, hey, can you help me understand why you made fun of me in front of your mother? Well, okay, now we can have a conversation about that. But much better to say, listen, I apologize that I made fun of you in front of your mother and I embarrassed you, and I'm sorry. Boom, leave it at that. Okay? All right. Number 3, the next thing that's really important after you acknowledge the offense and your culpability is to express remorse. When you hurt someone, it's natural to feel some shame and some humiliation or remorse, right? Expressing those feelings communicates that you recognize and regret the suffering that you caused. Okay? Be careful of phrases like, no, that was uncharacteristic of me. Again, that's defensiveness or excuse-making. Stay away from that. Right? You got to take full ownership for what it is you did. All right? So you don't want to come off defensive. Instead, simply say these 6 very powerful words. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Okay? Now, maybe I'm going to add to it a little bit. I am sorry I embarrassed you in front of my mother. Please forgive me. Right? So you start with I'm sorry. In the middle, you put what you did. And you end with please forgive me. All right. And then lastly, you have to make amends. A good apology should include efforts to repair the damage done. Reparation for tangible offenses, like you broke a coffee cup, might involve, replacing the coffee cup. Whereas reparation for less tangible things like a violation of trust or just something you've done that hurt your spouse's heart, like a name calling or anger or, something that you said that you thought was funny that wasn't, right? Tends to be a little bit harder to repair, right? And if that's happening a lot, you may want to think about getting some marriage counseling if you just keep messing up, right? So you need to kind of try to repair the damage, right? And it gets difficult when the damage was verbal. But true, humble contrition is sometimes all you can do. But of course, with the pledge that you will not do or say that hurtful thing again, all right? And so it's just so much of that is your tone of voice, right, and the contrition you show. And then, of course, that your spouse actually sees you're making an effort to not fall down that rabbit hole again, all right? So there we go, right? Acknowledge the offense, own it, don't make excuses, don't justify it. Acknowledge what you did. Start with the words, I am sorry. Fill in the blank on exactly what it is that you did wrong. So you can acknowledge the fact that, okay, I get it, right? So very specific in acknowledging the offense. And then make amends and a sincere pledge to not fall down that rabbit hole again. Okay? So there's a good, effective apology. Now, let me say this. When you are on the receiving end of a good, effective apology, there's 3 words that should come out of your mouth. And those 3 words are, I forgive you. And I promise you that if you build your marriage on, I'm sorry, I forgive you, you're going to have a pretty good marriage. Because I promise you, you're going to have a lot of things that need to be forgiven. And the sooner you can forgive it and move on, the better your marriage is going to be. The more you're going to enjoy each other's company.
That was the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the Best of the Week is on the Relevant Radio app. Free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.